the it's called biophase sleep, a 2-sleep process, where you sleep for a few hours and get up for a few hours, and then you sleep for a few hours more, and then just depends on, like in Italy, they have the siesta in the afternoon, and then which can be like 2 hours, and I'm trying to get, how did I do the camera on this one? Maybe is it here? Oh, there we go. Okay. Alright, so now why is that? Oh, that should go through. I want that. I want Zoom to show me. There we go. Oh, now we're on 2. Hold on. I don't need that going on. Okay.
There she is.
Technology. Alright. Let me minimize this for a moment. Everybody doesn't need to see all that. Close that out. Alright, and I can make this, nope, I need this part bigger. So we can, yeah, okay. Alright, so, welcome everyone. This is Monday, September the 25th, 2023, with the Indiana Assembly, and we welcome Kentucky Assembly with us as well. They will be starting to join us on Monday evenings with us. We will be doing, at the end, we will, if we needed to separate out to discuss state business, I've already got set up for this evening, as well as all the calls moving forward. 2 rooms, 1 for each, so that once we're ready, we can separate out. And now, Indiana's I would be able to still record here. We'll have to set up, make sure that someone is recording on Kentucky's end inside that Zoom room thing too.
Right, that would be Justin's wheelhouse there. I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how to structure that.
I tried to make him an alternate, but it wasn't letting me because I guess he's not part of my team account or something. So I couldn't add him from that aspect. But I think once we separate out, I can upgrade him to I can make him a co-host. We'll see how that works. And we'll get it figured out.
Right.
All right. So we will go ahead and take a moment and start with honoring our Creator. All right, we'll go ahead and do the Bivens decision. Make sure I can screen share so we have our display up here. Okay, and it should, yep, okay. All right, this meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflicts and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's call that is a member of or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Is their response to the Bivens decision for the first time? Those that are on the YouTube, watching us streaming live, you can put it in your comments. What if you are a agent, go ahead and put it in there, as well as go ahead and put your name and what county on Indiana or county on Kentucky that you are on. Again, we want to welcome Indianians, welcome Kentucky. All right, so hearing and seeing none. Okay, is there any response to the Bivens decision for the second time? Hearing and seeing none. Any response to the Bivens decision for the third time? Hearing and seeing none. Furthermore, anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who is being paid or coerced to be here must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave the premises or conference call. Remember, you're the public employee and it's our duty to remind you. All right, so this evening we're going to, and now that we are joining with Kentucky Assembly, the first portion I'm going to go over general items that are from the coordinator's perspective, because as we have been brought to this union to support each other in our postal area. So that because the Kentucky Assembly is lacking a state coordinator presence right now, but they have a state militia presence. So I will be bringing a lot of the state coordinator information and support that is general for all the states anyway, to be able to support Kentuckians as well. And then we will go in, once I've gone through that, then we will go in with Joe and what he has for this evening and each evening going forward. And then at that point, once we're done, then if it was necessary for us to split up in our by state to be able to discuss anything, we can be able to do that at that point in time. We will adjourn the overall call at that point if we separate out, so that way then you can separate on your own. So then the next call will be adjourned to October the 9th at 6 p.m. and again we'll be including the Kentucky Assembly with us. All right, so I wanted to make sure we had also your key links to remember for Indiana Assembly, men and women points of order, Article 4337, Public International Alert for State Assemblies, committees, the way we work, the Assembly Militia Standards and Principles, Standard Operating Procedures, templates, so we can start working on getting ideas on how to put that together as well. All right, so I wanted to give a heads up of starting with what is the role of the coordinator in the first place. A lot of this stuff I'm just going to briefly go over. I did pull some main notes from several articles, and you'll see it at the bottom of each slide where I've combined several things. Then as the link does change, then it's for that group of notes that I pulled together for there. And then it's still I want to make sure I get some a little more time dealing with the Jural Assembly once we get to that point. All right, so role of coordinator. And this was a great question because my husband even asked me, he's like, there's a lot of people that talk to me and they want to know what you actually do. And I said, well, that is a great question. And so I figured I might as well go ahead and bring it forward. So the coordinator is here to bring people together in a safe, equitable surroundings to conduct business for the state. And in this case, to set up the 4 pillars of the assembly itself. So it's bringing everybody together, making sure that, the space is available, recording capacity, all the right people are qualified to be at the table, that kind of thing. And then moderate it so that, but you guys are actually the ones doing all the actual heavy lifting of the work. Okay? So this was a key point that I thought was great from the articles. So you want to make space in your mind and heart for what the true mission of your assembly to sink in. It's about getting your state government running and restored. It's about enforcing the law of the land and upholding your unalienable rights and interests. That mission is far greater value and importance than any squabbles you may have. Okay, so we want to make sure we keep this in mind so that we can all keep things moving forward together. All right. Differences between societies and assemblies. So jural assemblies are organized units in the sea and maritime jurisdiction courts, and they associate and they create the states of states, counties of county. Whereas jural assemblies, they assemble and we create states and counties. Alright, so the states are geographically defined areas that are under the control of public laws established by the people who live within their borders. That's why everyone that connects in, the very first question I'm asking you is, what county do you live on today? Okay? What county do you live on today? That's the very first question that I ask. And sometimes many are very confused with that question. even in because I have for the to schedule with me, I have a couple of questions that I have the program ask them as well, and that is, what county on Indiana do you currently call home? And so many will put IN or Indiana. And I've even put in the notes, Indiana is not one of the 92 counties. So it's funny, but that's why it's very important to know where you are actually standing. Where do you call home? Because that's the county that you're then populating today. Not where you've been, not where you're thinking about moving to. I've received those as well. It's where you are today. Yes?
It could be that through indoctrination and the disrespect that through the decades that the counties have endured. For example, I'm a Kentuckian, but my county or my country within the nation state of Kentucky, that's where my estate is. And so, yeah, all in all, it would be ultimately that each county would have their own flag.
Yeah.
Just like each country. So.
Well, I've used the example with many to explain it is you're going to have to get in the concept of the European Union. That kind of concept. We've all thought of America as one and all can act as one, even though we know they're separate.
Yeah.
But we have to start breaking it down. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. America is a continent, one of two.
Mm-hmm.
North America and continent sharing Central America as part of it. Yeah, it's just been that subtle but persuasive indoctrination over the decades that has marginalized the need to mention counties, because counties equate countries.
Right. Well, and so many, they're quicker to say what city. Their city as opposed to what county they're in. Okay, so we've got that is the geographical location, living in the border. The states are unincorporated, cannot be incorporated. Land and soil jurisdiction entities that run as unincorporated businesses. States have very simple names: Ohio, Rhode Island, Maine, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky. Okay, so the people that are acting as people make up the Jural Assembly. If you're people but you're acting as a person, you make up a Jural Society. All right. So, state assembly, overall state assembly, lawful person. I added in 21 plus years of age, preferably, who are still attached to physical reality and to specific locations in space, can populate the soil and land jurisdiction, which are likewise geographically and physically defined lawful persons. So under 21, obviously, are going to be our children and our soon-to-be adults. All right. So And that's something that's interesting that that Anna worded it in this fashion, because I've had some that have the way they're responding, it seems as though they have spent some extra time in their metaphysical time, as opposed to trying to nail it down for how it is here. So I can see how that fits in. We need to realize that there are 3 different kinds of states. So we have the United States, which is the soil. The United States of America, that's the land, are owned and operated and governed by lawful persons. Okay? So it's those 2 elements that are owned, operated, and governed by lawful persons, because you're the ones actually on that land and soil. Alright, so the General Assembly, this is the first of the 4 pillars. So the State General Assembly, and these I'm getting here from, here are the next round of notes, as well as pulling from the Jural Assembly Handbook. Also note that the Jural Assembly Handbook is under revision. Right now, North Carolina has come up with a Jural Assembly Handbook, but it is focused on solely the Jural Assembly. It does give great educational, for the educational aspect that I'm hoping to work in to help support us as well. But Anna's Jural Assembly Handbook gave an overview of all 4 pillars, so that's where I'm pulling from this right now at this point. So the state General Assembly is composed of electors, both state nationals and state citizens who own land within the borders of their state can serve as electors of the General Assembly. And also, when this was written, this was based on how it was all set at the time, when everything just stopped working and operating as it should have at the time. So there's a lot of things that we've started rolling forward, right? Because Anna has said that you can use your physical vessel as your land, but we have to make sure you're standing on soil that you're trying to support. Okay? So that's why it's very important that we make sure what county you are actually on. And because land and soil are so combined, eligibility as a soil jurisdiction, Republican, state, national, or citizen automatically qualifies one to be a state national or a state citizen. And for practical purposes, people from the republics act as people representing their state in international jurisdiction. Now, please note, Republican and republic. 2 different terms. So in the notes, I've included where Anna discusses of how the 2 are. One is the republic is the masculine form, Republican is the feminine form, and it goes into more detail to be able to help you understand the difference. Okay? A lot of this is getting clear on our verbiage as well, and that's going to be able to help support you and you'll start getting familiar with it the more we're all supporting each other in using the correct terms. Okay. Alright, so now, the Executive Business International Assembly, it's all one. So the State Executive Assembly continues to function throughout the year and is enabled to conduct routine business for the state, including issuing public notices, conducting elections, overseeing use and sale of state resources such as timber sales and public land leases, preparing ballot initiatives for the General Assembly, and serving as an interface for communications from the federal government. As well as these are basically, this is basically committees of astute businessmen who have a state assembly chairman state treasurer, state secretary, state executive assembly members from the land districts within the state. All right, and then it's at this point where in the information that Anna brings forward about the postal districts, and we've discussed that we are in Postal Area 4, and that is Indiana and Kentucky, and that's why we're supporting each other within our postal area, as well as Ohio and Michigan within our postal area. And Joe told us that the reason we're Postal Area 4 is because the zip codes in our area begin with 4. And they stagger like that across the country. All right, so Jural Assembly. This is why I wanted a little bit more time in here for us. So State Jural Assembly takes up judicial issues that affect the people of the state and the enforcement of the public law, including enforcement of the constitutions and running the people's court, and elections related to the courts and peacekeeping functions and officials. And this runs all year long. Okay? So that is something that will be an ongoing thing to be able to support. Right? Composed of qualified jurors who are state citizens and state electors, that is, people of the Republican states, who have volunteered to serve the state government in the capacity of jurors. Then within the Jural Assembly, this is where the sheriffs are within the Jural Assembly, as well as the militia, but the sheriffs are primarily under the Jural for this aspect. Then you have state justices and justices of the peace, clerks, bondsmen, coroners, other elected and hired members of the people's court. And I keep getting drawn to where it has people's court because I'm old school from Judge Wapner, if anybody remembers that. And then it became Judge Judy or something similar to it, something like that. But people's court, and so it would be great to see the Indiana People's Court, the Kentucky People's Court, see those live in action. All land and soil jurisdiction courts operate under the provisions of American common law. We do not practice equity law, which is a hybrid English common law and admiralty law. So, Anna brings up mainly that this is the key that she likes to direct us to. This is The Excellence of Common Law by Brent Allen Winters. It is a college level textbook, but we do need to learn what common law actually is. So if you're interested in diving into that, we can be able to do that. I have obviously the textbook, study guide, and that sort of thing. We can be able to, if you're interested, we can be able to include that as a separate call. All right. So then the mission statement for the Indiana Jural Assembly. Now in Anna's Jural Assembly handbook, it has Wisconsin, and I've gone ahead and put in Indiana. Our Indiana Jural Assembly is dedicated to the restoration of a complete and fully operational land and soil jurisdiction, state and county court system, serving the people of Indiana, the preservation of the national trust, the enforcement of the public law, the upholding of the federal constitution owed to our state and people, and repopulation of our land and soil jurisdiction, the filling of vacated public offices, and the reclamation of our material and intellectual public and private assets. To these ends, we, the living people of Indiana, have called the eligible Indiana nationals and electors to assemble and to serve as jurors and officers. And we have established the process and procedure to qualify jurors and others competent to hold state citizenship and public office. We do this peacefully and without rancor in the exercise of our unincorporated powers and capacities. All right, and then briefly on militia, which I thought this is a separate set of notes that I dived a little, because the Jural Assembly just briefly touched on militia, but gives a little bit more info into here. So, and Anna is so creative with her words. I love how she can put a story to it so that we actually can get a clearer picture of it. When the patches need to be sewn on and the uniforms mended, when the ammo needs to be reloaded, when the flag needs to be constructed out of patchwork, when the post office needs to stay open, when water needs to be boiled, when bandages need to be rolled, when we have to find something to feed the families, guess who stands in the gap? Community defense and disaster preparedness is for everyone above the age of 16, and we all have things we can do and skills we can contribute. Okay, and so that was I also put out a post on the athomeonindiana.org website, where it was Anna's article that went into a little bit more detail about ways to be able to support. And we have addressed working to set up what are called CERT trainings, Community Emergency Response Training, to learn first aid, because you are your first responder. There's no one coming to help you. If anybody, be your closest neighbor, if that, because they have to take care of themselves first too, because that's the first thing you do, is you always secure yourself first, and then the very next one next to you, and then the very next one next to them, and you ripple out that way. But you always start with yourself first, because if you're not in good shape, you're not going to help anybody else. All right, then this gets into a little bit more meat about the militia. So it's a simple subcommittee to deal with its own militia affairs. So the subcommittee's primary job is to supply the militia with men and materials needed to promote the general public safety within the borders of their state, to bring forward projects and needs and supply requests for review and budget allocations going forward. And the Militia Affairs Committee is also the group charged with working with the militia to develop public safety plans. The Assembly Militia also bears the brunt, and the Militia Affairs Committee acts in support to provide funding and manpower, also helps direct operations via their planning functions. But it does not direct or interfere with the day-to-day functions of the militia. And so Anna wants us to make sure that we do pass the word to understand what the difference between our lawful state assembly militia and anything operated by territorial as a national militia, and the importance of this information, especially for any militia men you know. So, in the notes, we'll give you the article that specifically comes from, so you can get more specific details, but you want to make sure that you're very clear on that we are the assembly militia and not to combined acts, behaviors of a national militia. She also has the assembly militias focused on promoting public safety within the boundaries of their state, and is well regulated, militia guaranteed to each state for its internal security, and that is in the Constitution, and that's why we're also allowed to have it. Assembly militias often meet before or after General Assembly meetings, but bear in mind there's also possibilities of a weekend schedule for training and conducting exercise and other business. And so those between 21 and 65 are expected to actively support their militia in one way or another. Terry likes to put it, if you're even able to carry a bottle of water, then you can support. All right. then there's ways of support for supplies, communications, administrative positions, and so forth. All right. So then I wanted to give you the links for the articles that Anna has written for this week. And so there are those. Should be interesting to get into this one as well. Oh, and Anna is adding a call. So that'll be interesting to start paying attention to as well. Okay, so then our social media links, so Locals, Odyssey, Rumble, and of course YouTube. Alright, so I just wanted to make sure that we got through some of these things. We'll adjourn next, when we finish with this evening's call, we'll be adjourning until October the 9th, 6 p.m. And so I will go ahead and finish what I have here and be able to move over to Joe for what he has for this evening.
Thank you, Christine. I'm going to turn my camera off because it's going down on the bandwidth. That's
Okay, yeah.
okay. Well, thank you for that presentation. That was great. Just a one caveat. You mentioned earlier from the beginning that Kentucky has a militia element. We have a martial at arms element active, and what we'll just talk about briefly tonight is the fact that all assemblies currently have a militia. They just aren't quite aware of it yet, so they're not privy to those details. So if you would, Christine, could you pull up the PKTF news site? I'd like to touch on these things with everyone and go over the website layout as it is currently.
And I just happen to make sure to have that up. Which I have.
Anybody in YouTube land that's currently in the chat that has any questions about the site itself, the layout, or do you, Christine?
I haven't received any. I'm trying to.
Can't hear you if you're muted.
Oh. Somewhere. There it is.
You're muted.
I got it. Technology. What was the question?
Is anybody in the chat want you to
that have
pressing questions at the moment?
Yeah, I still haven't received any emails for any questions, but I have also included in the email that goes out that they could email you directly as well, but I'm not.
So we'll step through what's currently on the site itself. It's quite thorough, even though it's not fully navigable. In other words, portions of the site anyone goes to, they might not be able to have any access to certain button and displays that would otherwise lead to other information. But what we'll do is go down to the bottom of this page. We'll start there, because what's mainly missing at the moment is a blog section, and the site itself will showcase predominantly articles that describe the full function of the Peacekeeping Task Force, its future. Well, yeah, we'll go back up, but you can go all the way back. You can go down all the way first.
Which I do want to take a moment. We do have Lisa on St. Joseph County in the call. Welcome, dear, in the chat. So we did, and we'll get back over here. Okay, so up.
So yeah, Christine, just scroll all the way down to the footer.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so for everybody, all the way down. Now at the bottom you'll see icon links that takes you out of the site, but to other areas online that facilitate the PKTF news site in its entirety. So if you would click that blogger button, the B, right there in the bottom, in the middle, very bottom. Yep. Okay, So in the interim, with the absence of PKTF News articles that will be on the site, now and in the future, readers can actually go to this site and get a heads up on cursory writings about various articles, developments of the PKTF, what it's for, what it will be, what its vision is, and we add on to, or actually I do, but my team contributes, and state assemblies in the future will also have the opportunity to contribute. But this section is in addition to the articles that will be on the site eventually. Again, this is a blogging site. It's very similar to Paul Stramer's site. The Federation also has a section that they usually, they haven't updated in a while because they're working on other matters, but if you'll scroll down, you can see, just kind of get a glance at it. This is in addition to. So for those who will receive newsletters in the future, those who would like to subscribe or consider subscribing to the ATF News Future site, you can get an exclusive on what articles will be discussed in great detail on the site. And of course, you'll be able, through the newsletter also, you'll be able to subscribe. But no one needs a newsletter here. Of course, it's completely free. We don't accept donations. Just subscription is all we need. I'm not sure, Christine, if you can actually subscribe even to this site. I think it's completely open to the public. But definitely, for the readers and yourself, go to this section at the bottom, and you can get a good exclusive look into what's taking place with the site. Okay, get back out. We're just navigating through. You can back out and come back to the site. Yeah. Okay, we also have a section in Telegram, although it's not widely used. You can click that too if you want, just kind of seeing how it goes. So if you don't have it, if you have a mobile access to Telegram, you can go in this way as well. And it's mainly just a reiteration of what's posted on the blog section, on the, any other extras that might be there. Okay. And what I'm most fond of, you can back out of that. And the LinkedIn section. Okay, so if you don't have a site, you'll have to, you can have it. I do encourage those who are professionals or those who are considering joining the realm of small business owners or professionals who currently work in the corporate realm, but who would like to broadcast themselves in a professional manner. LinkedIn is, I guess you could say, similar to Facebook social media, but it's geared only towards businesses and corporate structures and those kinds of things. So,
see what this got into?
Yeah, you can show how you set it up, Christine. If not, you can do it later. But those who have LinkedIn, and we have had folks to reach out to us through LinkedIn already. And if you'd like to see my LinkedIn page, you can find it there.
Okay. It didn't like something.
Yeah, well, if you...
Of course, the train is coming now.
Yeah. I want to say
He wants to put it. Oh, I can skip. Go ahead.
You had an honorable mention from the American State Nationals podcast from last week.
Oh.
Minnesota. Those who were taking part in the interview for the Minnesota Assembly made an honorable mention of the Indiana Assembly's, I guess, nationwide discussions and teachings and whatnot that you have.
Awesome.
In addition to so there we go.
That's great.
So there we are. Yeah. So there we are, and we're Also discussing the opportunity, this is just in addition to the effectiveness of LinkedIn. We're able to reach out to certain de facto entities that are themselves professional, and some industries leadership requires their workforce to publish on LinkedIn. It seems to be just a corporate requirement, so to speak. So there's a lot of folks that you can reach out to. Like I say, I haven't been on Facebook forever. My site is still there, but I haven't visited in maybe a year and a half or more. And I don't miss it, but I've just noticed how familiar in many ways that LinkedIn is laid out. Yeah, you'll see typically only professional discussions taking place here and contacts. So it's our expectation that at some point, folks within the state capitol, the influences that takes place at each state capitol, Secretary of State, Attorney General, and those functions. We hope to be able to reach out to them in many ways, but I'm wagering that when Americans do reach out, many of those departments will probably check LinkedIn to see if we are listed in this directory as well. So it's not necessary, of course, but we found extreme value in that. What's Jan Hayes, I believe is her name. She's a PhD. You probably heard her. She's getting around the interviewing sector, and she lives in England, but she's an American. And in fact, you can actually find her on LinkedIn as well. But she's discussing things about, I can type in Jan Hayes, Hayes. And she has her hyphenated name in there. But there's been interviews that she's held. Let's see if I can find it. She's got a middle name in there. Jan Halper Hayes.
Oh, yes.
Halp.
Now I know how you're talking.
Halp.
Yeah. My husband and I have been paying attention to her as well.
Yeah. So just as an example, you got people who are highly influential in the scene of the various things that are taking place. So you'll find these people listed on LinkedIn. This is just, like I say, this just seems to be a going requirement that industry leaders, folks who work within the industry leaders, territorial and municipal agencies such as the National Sheriff's Association, for example. Of course, all of the 3-letter agencies and 4-letter agencies you'll find there. But as the assemblies grow, they should know that there would be, or should expect that there would be a directory of these professionals found somewhere outside of their own work environment, and that would be LinkedIn. Okay, so just to consider that for those people who would like to join that realm, so to speak, and share their credentials. If you go to again, you can see my educational background, and you can see the statement about Peacekeeping Task Force, the directory, things that we're working on. But our presence is very new on the site. So those are some of the qualifiers, I guess you could say. And we do see an appreciation in that, having that exposure, because these are professionals after all, and we should be considered no less than professionals as well. Okay, so it's really the de jure meeting the de facto where they are listed. Okay, so there's that. Okay, if you want to go back to the site. Okay, so these are the bottoms. So you'll see also in the footer, all of that gray area is the footer between the subscribe button, which is deactivated. We don't have a YouTube presence as of yet. We will. Our goal is to get out there as far as possible. So word of mouth is definitely the way at this moment. Sections where you see in the upper portion of the footer, such as pages, layout, content, market, and charter, those will be built on as we move forward. And it's a labor of love, but what we needed to launch at first, which if you go back to the top, you can see, is the pilot program for distressed Americans who are incarcerated. And again, you'll see at the top of each header, you'll see those two drop-down notice icons mentioning that the site itself is throttled at the moment, but for good reason. So if anybody wants to go in to look at the pilot project that we're working on right now, we're attempting to provide relief, this nominal relief funds, to the family members that are outside of the incarceration. But all of the detail is what we were striving for. Okay, so if anybody finds themselves incarcerated unlawfully, a victimless crime, let's say beyond a week or so, but even at the very moment, we're hoping that their family members that are helping to cooperate to remedy the situation and get these people extradited from incarceration, to provide or to maintain a chain of custody on their communication level. So if you go down, Christine, you see, you tap the donation, the blue section there, go up, go back up. Right there where it says the donation. Top, right there, the blue, where it's blue. Yep. So here is where all of the details have been provided. So if anybody is interested in finding out what has happened and if they can relate to what it would be to be caught in this situation, you can know that the Peacekeeping Task Force, through the Continental Marshal Service, which is providing these details, are attempting to reach out to the Americans or any folks worldwide and send any little bit of whatever they can to the family to deal with. And 100% of those funds, whatever is raised, goes directly to the family, not to the legal counsel or lawful counsel or to the courts. It's not meant to go to any lawyers or anything about the courts at all. It's for helping the family load cantina purchases for those who are incarcerated, paperwork filing, fees, or anything of the sort. This is essentially what you see here are all of the evidences from the family members that are suffering through this situation. And again, this is going on 9 weeks, so this is definitely a prolonged, unlawful stay, incarcerated. So it's the least that we can do at this moment, but for the most part, to provide all of the details that we have from the family members. I mean, everything. So we found extreme value in that. It's at 100%. It's offering 100% transparency on the part of the family members, including their paperwork, photos, and video. You can see at the bottom. As well as we're asking the family members, once they receive the whatever funding that the Continental Marshals are able to pull together, to let the readers know what impact that has had, what positive impact that's had on the family.
And Assembly members should see how the Alaska Assembly is stepping up in their ways to be able to support that Indianians and Kentuckians can be able to do as well.
Right. Well, we don't foresee too many of these prolonged incarceration stays as things continue to develop. I would imagine, and we're very optimistic, that many of these courts and these police departments will logically think twice about keeping any Americans unlawfully incarcerated. You know? If the notion is, we anticipate the notion is that these particular men are being held up to 90 days. That does seem to be the case as perhaps a strategy of attrition. And we don't expect them to be in there longer than 90 days. Certainly we would have them out of that situation sooner. But that's not the case at the moment. I can't get that video to play for some reason. But anyway, this is just a good faith effort on the part of the people who are found in this situation and is willing to provide those play-by-play details, particularly with the communication levels on all discussions that are held. If you'll notice in this pink section where the evidences are, I mean, it tells when contact was made, the discussions that were held afterwards, and also mentions how long those communications lasted. So it's really detailed, and it just goes to show how frustrating it can be to have to maintain a timeline like this. But it also justifies if people are incarcerated, that, you know, if they are needing relief, to at least provide that to the world as far as what they've had to endure and for how long.
Right.
So just short of that, extradition in the future will be a simple recognizing the status and the fact that there is no victim. If an American's detained and incarcerated, that there would be a process, a lawful, recognizable process to have them verified that no, there's no victim involved, there's no evidence to suggest this is something else entirely, that the state of state or the county.
But they're becoming a victim from all of this.
Right, no, I'm talking about, you know, the city of Homer asserting itself as being the victim. But of course, if there is a victim, that would be determined. So we would anticipate in the future that even this project here would be rare, few and far between, because either a state assembly liaison or a continental marshal deputy, continental marshal, perhaps in the future, or a sheriff can come in and extradite them after, you know, 72 hour, let's just say 72-hour reasonable time frame to verify that there indeed was no victim. And in this case as well, you'll see that there's no evidence to suggest that there was a victim. No property damage, no bodily harm to any officers or anything of the sort. So those are those details. If anybody would like to donate, there's the donate link. Now it has listed Peacekeeping Task Force because we're piloting the project, but this is actually a Continental Marshal contingency plan that they've been working on for quite a while. And yes, there have been Americans who've been harassed and threatened for incarceration, and those who have been incarcerated, but for, you know, 4 or 5 days or a week at the most, and then they're out. So this project in particular itself there wouldn't be enough time accumulated behind bars that would initiate this kind of project for them, unfortunately. So that's why we expect, you know, 72 hours in the future, 72 hours or less, someone unlawfully incarcerated in America. Okay, so I'll just go through. I wanted to touch on, go back to the beginning. Okay, now the About section, we'll go through briefly. You can go to the timeline that was recently added. The timeline just touches on the evolution of the Peacekeeping Task Force, when it started, and what it's grown through from June 2020 until now. It also talks about the first directorate removed for cause. Doesn't go into a whole lot of details, but there's been articles written about that. And then what's taken place from June 2021 until now. Okay. And if you go into the services, which is also under the About, now this is where we go into the kind of the meat and potatoes of what the Peacekeeping Task Force focuses on, and that is primarily the militia. Okay. Oh, sorry, Christine, can you, before we go dive into this, can you go back to the home button again? And scroll down to the flip. Where it emphasizes, all right, there you go. The 3 external realms of peacekeepers. So these are, in a sense, the peacekeepers outside of the assembly. Okay, now you can go to the county marshals, we'll touch on that, the county sheriff. Okay, so when it flips over, that just gives a little bit more detail. Okay, so just keep in mind that those are the 3 external. But the only caveat with this, which is what we'll talk about when we go back to the services page, is the fact that the American State Assembly Militia is a pillar. Okay, so we'll touch on that. So if you go down to the bottom of the other 2, okay, these are the, all right, okay, martial arms, we'll touch that. Okay, so it just gives a kind of a quick bullet point of what these internal peacekeepers offer. Okay, the state-owned button. Okay. All right, so just keep that in mind, folks, because you have internal and external. Now, the Peacekeeping Task Force does not facilitate evaluation, education, or coordination for marshals at arms or embezzlement. But we do make a mention of them because of the fact that there are 5 in total American peacekeeping services. Okay. But the only 3 that the KTF is mostly concerned about, or chartered to be concerned about, are that of the Continental Marshal Service, County Sheriff, and in particular, by and large, and from the beginning perhaps, the militia. Okay, so if you go back to the About button and down to the services. Okay, so this is just touching upon where we're responsible for the evaluation aspect, education aspect, and coordination aspect. And these 3 aspects are cyclical, and part of our responsibility is to go around when assemblies are available to meet and to discuss where they are with their, we evaluate where they are, where they're striving for, any questions they might have regarding the militia itself. Okay. And we go in, and since the militia is of, by, and for the people, and it's a vast spectrum of services, which the Federation emphasizes the need of assistance in a situation where a community is suffering from trespass or conflicts. You have a heightened sense of necessity or assistance needed, because every community is always in need, and it's the people that satisfies those needs on a daily basis. Okay. Okay, you can go down to the, okay, so every one of these, regarding the finer details about the cyclical approach towards the assemblies and their militia, will focus on analysis. You can touch on that. Now these buttons, they don't go anywhere as of yet, purposefully, but if you'll notice when you touch each one, you'll notice that there is no mentioning of sheriff necessarily, outrightly, or that of the Continental Marshals. Every one of these 6 sections here are focused on militia. Okay. And since the counties and the states are comprised of people, by default, every assembly has a militia. Obviously, you know. But we wanted to share the finer details and focus on the evaluation, education, and coordination aspect of the militia. And these are the 6 main drivers. Okay.
Each
one of these sections. Yep. So each one of these sections, if you can envision that in the future, each one of these having their own separate committee that would focus on, for instance, higher education. What can the people, aka militia, provide towards focusing on education? How are they with their outreach regarding interviewing themselves, offering that, booking interviews with themselves, and also starts to lend itself to the business assembly. Folks are coming from the militia as a people with skill set or desires to pursue a certain aspect of what their community can offer. Okay. So anyway, those, and there will be more. These are just some of the things, okay, that we're starting with. So that each read more button section there you see on there, Christine, earlier, you'll be able to read articles exclusively about, very detailed articles about each one of those 6 initial drivers.
Okay.
So just look forward to that. And just a little header there emphasizing safety and security, true safety and security. And now the states, we know that I believe Vermont and another south central state that's not with coordination. We would like to get that supporting state assemblies up to 50, but currently I think Vermont and another south central state is not without a coordinator. We have mentioned the project as it is now to at least 4 states, to include Indiana, to include but not limited to. And we show that as well in this section, and the cumulative amount of months that we have dedicated. So just to show people each month, since the website is designed as a monthly news magazine, so the layout is of that. We want to remind everybody how many months we've got dedicated to the project. Okay. Yep. Just emphasizing it again. So if anybody is interested, we'll open that contact form up eventually. Now I like this section here. I like all of the sections, but this one, since the Peacekeeping Task Force had a kind of a turbulent beginning, we wanted to hand it back over to the Federation to actually grade the Peacekeeping Task Force on a monthly basis. So of course we want to try to receive five full star ratings from the Federation themselves. So we'll, in the future, even right now, we should start receiving feedback from the Federation themselves, things that might be lacking, things that might need to be focused on, things that needs to be added or should have been added. So any healthy, honest deficiency, we will rate. We're hoping that the Federation will take the time to rate us, so that there will never be again another faulty situation inside the Peacekeeping Task Force. As I mentioned to Anna, as the KTF 2.0, as it's been referred to, I mentioned that we strive to have no whole number version upgrade. There might be a 2.1 or a 2.2.1. Those are incremental, but it's definitely not a whole number version. No revamping. No. When we have people leave the PKTF, it should be under honorable service and those bittersweet departures, those kind of things.
And that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah. So, in the future, if anybody comes in and sees a 4.8 measure, but sees a 4.0, then there will be material provided as to why that rating has dropped. So, and then measures on how to get that back up. Okay. So again, full transparency is what we're going for. And so I think we're on the right track in order to provide that. Okay, in the last section here, we also wanted to give a measurable value regarding the evaluation, education, and coordination aspect. So in the future, again, so you'll see 48 states that we are currently tracking. So we just put an arbitrary measure up here, but and again, each of these sections will also have an article written about the value of the measure regarding evaluation, education, coordination. And remember, these continue to go around. If all 48 or 50 states or 10 or however many that we're at, we'll schedule another iteration of evaluation, education, and coordination. because we're trying to let the entire world know that we're ultimately peaceful, lawful, and transparent in every way. We will eventually cover every aspect of how that might be misunderstood, or like the Southern Poverty Law Center maintaining the pejorative term sovereign citizen. I mean, we're going to get around to that too, and they're ultimately going to have to think twice about publishing that, or else they face embarrassment.
Right.
I continue to maintain that. Okay, so that's that. We'll back up. Or you can get the editorial. Thank you for allowing me to share this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just like any magazine, typically on your first or second page you'll see an editorial. And you'll also see our outreach to the far right regarding who we are, what we're striving to be, and if there's anybody that's interested in joining the team. You'll see to the left the editorial itself, all the offices, the departments within that. You'll also see our mission statement. You'll see our charter, our relationship between the Federation and the states as well, and content section. Okay. I missed one thing about the timeline. If you go back under the About timeline, scroll all the way down once it comes up. Okay, now do you see that maroon offices in the very last paragraph? Very bottom. Yep. Now this is if anybody has any questions or concerns, because there are a lot of disheartened folks out there, or several, who they have issues with what had happened to the Peacekeeping Task Force directory a couple of years ago, or a year and a half. So those who are interested, we would like to hear from you. If you have any details about, or inquiries about, what had taken place, we're offering to provide as much detail as we can, because we don't want anybody ultimately being libeled or any stone unturned with the details regarding that. We just vow to never enter into that vulnerability again. So just want to put that out there to contact specifically about.
All right, so that's down
timeline.
here at the bottom of this page on the About timeline, so you'll be able to see where that's at.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so people can send us specific questions or comments about the entire development of PKTF. And the Peacekeeping Task Force is a new concept, it's a fresh concept. And if you go to the blog section that I showed earlier, you'll see that where we've written some most recent articles about what's comparable to the Peacekeeping Task Force as far as we can ascertain at the moment, and that would be that of perhaps the UN. So if you go and type in Peacekeeping Task Force in a browser, that's the emphasis on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be there in Mattermost there. But anyway,
And notice,
we made a mention.
Indianians, Mattermost. I'm always bringing up Mattermost, so if you still haven't gotten into Mattermost, email me. You'll also have emails coming through that have your those that are at least presented 1779 and 2 witness testimonies. You're getting links to be able to help you get into Mattermost. So let's make sure you do, because you're going to get a lot of valuable information from there.
Right, and our staff is kind of starting to migrate away. I mean, as useful as Mattermost is, we want to be able to kind of have a separate presence that's, evolved, I guess you could say, where Mattermost is kind of like a workstation to get your fingers dirty.
Right, yes, that's where I want everybody to go for on their cleaning up and getting out of all of that, and then when you're ready to then start working with the assembly.
Yeah, it's Mattermost is great. We are going to continue to promote that ourselves and advertise to the world the functionality of those who are status corrected can go there, and to me it's like a committee environment. Mm-hmm. And since the committees are what gets things done, Mattermost is where committee members share their notes. It's really great.
Yep.
But we on the peacekeeping side, we want to be able to showcase more of the, again, and to get the note in a more, not in a workshop setting or a work group setting, but more in of a professional kind of a finished touch appeal. Mm-hmm. that's what this site is about. And of course, it's always about peacekeeping. Okay, so go to the states. We only got 2 more sections at the moment. Okay, there'll be two maps, and I think we're working on that tonight. The IT team is working on getting the peacekeeping button, so there should be a peacekeeping button up in the navigation, the menu section for peacekeepers. Okay, and that'll be a separate, it's not there yet, but it'll be a separate function that'll have a mega menu list of all of the states, that all of the states that are highlighted will have then the emphasis on the First Amendment, the Americans' version of upholding the First Amendment. Okay, so all of the 10 amendments, the Peacekeeping Task Force is part of our task is to help show the Americans what those Bill of Rights are all about. Okay, so since the First Amendment is catered around free speech, part of the assembly militia can begin to unpack and learn what it is to be a freelance journalist. Okay, so in the either tonight or tomorrow, in the next 72 hours hopefully, there will be a site that also has a map, but it also has a section for each state assembly to provide their progress in a article format, like the one you just showed a couple times there, Christine, at the bottom, a lot of your section, and their counties. So in the future, you'll be able to click up there where it says peacekeepers, and then there'll be a drop-down menu for all of the states to provide their own freelance journalist work, their First Amendment example of the First Amendment. Okay. But this one is about all of the states who have a website. So we wanted to be able to provide that as well, a more crisp, clear view. But we wanted to be able to give, of course, every state assembly's coordination the opportunity to opt in. Okay, and there are states here that do have websites. I think Texas contacted us earlier today, and I do believe they have a website, but we haven't been able to find it. So these are all the ones that are confirmed operating and functioning state assembly websites. And Indiana, if you want to go ahead and click yours. Before you do, hover over it and you can see. Okay, so we wanted to put it in there because we wanted, again, full transparency. We wanted to make sure and give the General Assemblies the opportunity to opt in, to even be expressed on this website. So, I mean, we can walk through that, Christine, on another day or maybe next week, and I can provide...
I can give you a heads up. I did send out an email, and I've started getting responses so far in agreement, so... Yeah, we would definitely wanted to do that. I mean, if the state assemblies side are published here, the outreach, we want to just make sure that the General Assembly has an opportunity to, investigate and consider and even elect to have their website posted on the website, on the PKTF news site. Because what's going to happen eventually, again, with the peacekeeping tab or in the menu section, here is where your site shines, and that's the information speaks for itself. But it also provides that warm handshake between people who are considering status correcting can come to the website and also know that they've just entered into the website as far as the PKTF News website, that the peacekeepers are there as well, to help, just to know that we're developing right alongside the assembly. I can add a link as well for the assembly to the Peacekeeper News.
Yes, and that's what we're asking for as well, that type of cooperation. Is your IT team can provide a section for readers, Indianans, to go to the PKTF news site. Yep. So there's two ways in, Either those who are researching peacekeeping can access the state assembly's websites from the news site, and the assemblies can also provide access to the PKTF news site from your website. So yeah, in the top they will. In the future, you would have that. And we do have an old PKTF
Peacekeeping Task Force website, but it's reached its bitter end. It hasn't grown. It has provided a usefulness, but certainly not on the level that the PKTF news site is providing. So if you do have a link to the old Peacekeeping Task Force site, that's what we're kind of asking for. It's just confirming, that that site is going to the way of legends and the new site's taking over.
Yep.
So do you have a link for the
old
site
one?
there?
For the old one, yeah, I've hold on, let me come over here because I think I've been on it many a times. Hold on.
Yeah, Christine, we can actually, you and I can showcase that on behalf of the Peacekeeping Task Force and an interested assembly, and we can just go through the steps of what each assembly can expect to receive from the Peacekeeping Task Force on the side of education, recognition, our dedication to making sure that your continental marshals within your area are operating properly, that your sheriffs are receiving the outreach and the relationship between the sheriffs and the Continental Marshal Service, our sheriffs, their sheriff, and the Continental Marshal Service. Just to keeping everybody in the know.
Right.
Okay, that's really what it's all about. But by and large, and for the most part, initially, absolutely, the Peacekeeping Task Force embraces every state assembly militia because everybody comes from the militia. You check in with your assembly, you correct your status, then if you're looking around and you see, okay, I'm in this pillar, I recognize this environment, this is fabulous, General Assembly. But then you look off into not too distant, across the field, so to speak, and you see 3 other pillars. Well, the advice would be to go to check in with your assembly and find out what services that your community is offering, that it may need, and certain improvements or whatnot, things like that. And some elderly cannot. They cannot. They're in their years of retirement and they've earned it on one level or another, and they may decide to just contribute. Provide whatever they can to that. Whether maybe it's education, they can go to the training aspect and become tomorrow's professors. 60 or 70 years old, they can spend the next 10 years or so, if they're healthy, and join America's university and teach.
That's right.
American common law, and that's a militia aspect. I mean, everything on the community is a militia aspect, not solely, only, or largely combat militia. No. Journalism, it is a part of the militia. Cobblers, shoe repairmen, mechanics, engineers,
and teachers,
builders, and teachers. Absolutely. Okay. So there could be many more tabs in those 6. We just wanted to express our initial focus on 6 of probably 600 militia assembly developments. Okay. And then the more the better. Anybody has any idea that they have for their community or that exists on their community that they take admiration in, they can provide that information, and we can add it to the site, and we can express true of, by, and for the people community preparedness. Okay. And yes, of course, because of the turbulent world we live in, we're kind of forced to have to fortify our community preparedness regarding provisions and water, sustenance, supplies, protection, if need be, those kinds of things, strategies and whatnot. So, and yes, we will touch upon those as well. But we wanted to make sure and let the world know that we're not like any other entity out there that is either boasts as being a militia or is being accused of being a militia versus that of military or paramilitary. So we will work diligently to provide that for all onlookers to reconsider posting inflammatory articles or things of those nature, things that would otherwise describe the Assembly's militia in an incorrect light. And yes, the Assembly, we'll take from here what we can. And so just to let the folks who are on the call now and those who are listening to the call later, there's no need to donate. I mean, if you would like to donate to the Peacekeeping Task Force at this time, please donate to the relief fund for the family in question that you've seen on the site. Let it be known that there's no need to donate here, and for those who haven't donated before from this site, we will also provide a place where you can ask questions about, what those donations were used for up until now. I mean, we don't have any detail about who has donated to the Peacekeeping Task Force or to any of these 3 peacekeepers that you see up until now. But we're working on that, and again, remember, complete and utter transparency is what we're all about.
Right.
So we'll take this as well, and other aspects. This site is very, very sanitized, I guess. There's not a lot added to it, and so we decided a while back that it's absolutely time to archive this site. And
It was enough to at least get things started.
Right, of course. Oh yeah, great. Okay, so we'll have that retired very soon, but we'll take the best from this site and
We want to keep this
Right on.
stuff too. History of the flag.
yeah. Oh yeah, those are the things that will be added to, of course. So, okay, and
Awesome.
then one last section.
Oh,
On
let me
the,
get over there.
Okay, one last section is the editor's corner. Okay, just another area of sideline discussions that are not really qualified to be that of an article. The team that we work with, there's 4 of us, 3.5, I guess. But discussions that we have in the interim as we're working, this is kind of a water cooler section of where we just share with everybody, the readers, some of the sideline details of what we're talking about working with. So this wouldn't be an article. You probably wouldn't see anything written beyond these details. So this is just the editor's corner. A little bit more interesting side aspects of the site. And again, the showcase, there will be areas where journalists can share their work, which is this section regarding peacekeepers. That's the section where you'll see, when you hover over that, the whole entire section where you see those blue notice buttons, there'll be a whole section of all 50 states. It'll just drop down, and all of the state assemblies, states names that are highlighted, you should be able to click those. And then the state itself, the state assembly, can provide articles that we'll syndicate for free, of course. Just provide those pieces on behalf of your whichever assembly pillar you have that has a newsroom, and we'll showcase that on behalf of that state. We'll specify the pillar and just those positive functions and development. And then, in addition to that, there will be on the left side all of your counties. And your counties will have the same opportunity to provide their future county assembly website and their county work. Okay, so this is massively hard-hitting, and we're super, super excited. We did have to shut a lot of functions off because of the fact of the launching of the Family Relief Fund, and we didn't want to bog down. We want to take away from that focus for the sake of everything else that the site has to offer at this time. We do hope to launch in October. You notice that the top's mentioned as a pre-launch or pre-edition for October. So hopefully we'll have everything back up, or as much as reasonably possible, and then we can retire the relief fund effort to another section of the site, and hopefully not have to use it anymore.
Because everybody's going to be sending out their prayers of love to be able to help support as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and last but not least, the contact button. That's just for general contact. Anybody can reach out for general questions. Okay, send that, and there's that.
Awesome. Beautiful.
You haven't seen anything yet, Christine. Well, yeah, it's just thing that We estimate that, you know, we're operating at about 20%, and things will start to. We've covered all of our bases. We're now asking the Federation if they would like to, for the Peacekeeping Task Force, to schedule and book their interviews, their worldwide interviews, and we're excited to receive that as an opportunity. So anything beyond what the weekly webinar provides, we're already seeing some assemblies taking it upon themselves to schedule weekly meetings with Anna and her team. But for those who, such as Dr. Hayes there, Todd Callender, Dr. Reiner Fulmich, and those kinds of folks, if they would like to host some interviews with the Federation, we can hopefully we'll be providing that for them. We'll be their booking agent.
That's so
another
exciting.
Part of our charter is, another part of the VKTF's charter is involves the logistical and communication aspect, again, worldwide. So. Yeah, we have a lot going on, and if anybody who has any skills along those lines would like to help, we do have we have 3 directorates: executive, associate, and assistant. And anybody who would be interested in joining becoming the assistant director, largely they would be doing what I do. And there can be other folks who can assist each of the directors. The associate director deals with the administrative aspects of the site and of the services. But anybody has any questions, you can go into the LinkedIn section, and we've written an article on the blog spot at the bottom where we talked about earlier, Christine. Those are the kind of details. Yep.
Oh, hopefully I got a screen share. I'm already clicked over there, so it helps if I share.
Yeah. Also on the right margin for everybody, you can see where things are labeled, because as articles here, these are exclusive mentioning articles. You'll see the labels, the various labels, just like Paul Stramer's site. But this is hyper-focused on the peacekeeping aspect of the Federation of States creation, which is the Peacekeeping Task Force. There's nothing like this before. I'm extremely honored to be a part of this, and anybody who would be interested to join our team, you have numerous ways to reach out to us. And yes, Indiana, you do have a militia. Just don't know it yet. You have plenty of skilled people, I'm sure, within your assembly, and they just don't know it yet. So it's time to give them that inspirational nudge to get out there and show their finest,
Yeah, it's getting past all the different stories about it and getting to what it really is, and then they'll start getting that motivation.
Well, yeah, because the term militia, even oath keepers, they're still, at least the ones from Yavapai County, Nevada there, they never they say that they're not militia, but they never go through the term, they never take the time to identify what that truly is. They always default in their presentations weekly, bi-weekly, they always default to what they're not. They say they're not a militia, and then they equate what a militia is based on what the establishment says a militia is. So even those oath keepers themselves, even they themselves have an intelligence department. They don't want to take and I'm trying to disparage them, but they don't even take the time, or haven't yet, taken the time to share with their audience what true militia is. And their entire audience is part of the benevolent militia, vying for the people, all of their skills, all of their talent. But hopefully one day we'll be able to reach out to them and have an interview with those leaders as well, and so we can get through those sticking points that just seem to plague the community in their minds about what.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just trying to break through it. You know, sometimes once they hear it from someone completely different, at some point it'll click.
Right. Simply put, what a militia is and what a militia is not. Not what the establishment determines what is, and does not afford the time to define what it is not. And that's the sticking point. All right, so folks, I hope to have emails come in about questions so that we can share those. I hope to have enough time, Christine, I think I will next week, to be able to provide showcase some of the map, using my map, more about the structure of the PKTF and the strategic, the cordon I described earlier. A little bit more precise approach on how that's done properly. So we can talk about that. Anybody has any questions who are hearing the call or live in the chat, let us know. If you have any questions about those things or others, we'll talk about that next week.
All right,
Christine, give me some questions from your side of the office too. You know, if you have any yourself. I know you do a whole lot of work, and you could probably scare up about 36 questions if you have it.
I'm not seeing any in that. We do have another on the chat that's welcome in as well. I'm not seeing any questions up, but I was tapped into how you showed us last week about looking at the cordon, figuring that out. I had hoped to have had a chance to look at the through the county property tax office to be able to get a more defined. What was don't mean to sidetrack a little bit, but when we were on the call last Monday night, I had heard my husband was calling for our dogs, and our girl dog had gotten out. She was in heat, so she was away for a couple of days. So it kind of sidetracked everything as well. But I thought I really wanted to get into that as far as learning more about figuring out what your cordon space is, because even just even you immediately should know what your space is as well, even if you're not on a border, to be able to connect with other counties.
Right. Well, no matter how you look at it, where you live, unless you're in a city, it's much more difficult to appreciate attempting to secure your area if you live in a neighborhood where your left and right neighbor is 30 feet away.
Right.
And your backyard acreage is 1/8 of an acre. I mean, it's just not. It's not easy to defend or even merge. I mean, it's just not enough. I mean, and that's the direct vulnerability, precise vulnerability of living in the city. And some folks have no acreage. They have zero property.
Right.
Their entire perimeter is because they live on the 6th floor, and they have people around them through the walls, through the floor, and through the ceiling. That is tragic. That's horrible. There's no place for anybody to live that expects to have any kind of safety measures involved. They simply need to leave that environment.
Yeah. And a lot of it is fear, because it's a lot of work to make a move as well. But but just starting with going inside and asking Creator, how can I do this? Where do you want me to go? Make the way, because He's the source of all of our supply, so the way will be made. But you have to put it out there that you're ready to make that change too, and not feel like that you have to stay in that situation.
Yeah. I don't mean to express any bleakness to those who live in the inner cities, but there's just very little, next to no preventive measure in case things, go south terribly.
And they'll block off streets so you can't get in or out.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's the worst case situation to be.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by people who have very limited provisions. So we don't want to get into that. Yes, we're reaching out to counties. Yeah, anybody who lives in any cities, our hearts go out to, and hopefully you have the opportunity to leave at some point, or can leave in a very short amount of time, when you confirm that it's the time to go and that you have a safe place to go.
And that may be something down the road as well, of being able to, how can we start accessing more land for those to be able to move out?
Well, if you go to, Christine, it's funny you mentioned it. If you do go back to the podcast from last week, Minnesota mentioned what they did, a strategy that they did. Of course, that was to help to get established landowners on the record.
Mm-hmm.
But they did. It's interesting. That's one of the better interviews, podcast interviews that I've seen so far. And it's the one right after the Kentucky, so you can't miss it. And they have others coming up. And that's another thing too. I've mentioned that in closing. We also provided a support article regarding their efforts, and those who would strive to provide that as part of their outreach. And just like the North Carolina Assembly is providing, just like the New Jersey Assembly is providing outside of the weekly webinars,
Mm-hmm.
Stick with it and dedicate what you can to provide that value, and we'll do our part to syndicate that as well for free, of course.
It's exciting. We're all growing, and that's where every man and woman on every state, just like it tells us in Ephesians that we're supposed to not only pray for ourselves but pray for all those saints out there, to be able to give them the courage and to be able to walk through the fires that they need to. So that's a great way to support all of the states. Even if you can't do anything else, be able to support men and women across the country to be able to wake up to their spine and be able to step up to do the things that need to be done.
Sure. And also, Christine, if you want to add, we can go over the Bill of Rights next week, or we can start.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we can show what we're expressing here and what we're attempting to perfect. Because of course we uphold the Bill of Rights, but we have those rights already.
Right.
We're starting to realize that our subcontractors have rights as well, and those are those rights. Those rights are theirs. We have those already. So we can talk about the differentiation between the two, the mindset, the fact that those 10 rights need to be preserved, if anything, for the sake of those who are serving the people. They have those rights. Now we have the opportunity to show how those rights are done full tilt, full, I say full balance, not full tilt, but,
Mm-hmm.
done right. Yeah. And well, maybe we'll go over the first three.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yep, sounds good. All right.
And I'll try to get a crisp map of showing not only a cordon, but also the adjacent cordons, those across the road.
Okay.
About that too.
Sounds good.
You want to get a map of yours, if you can? You can.
Yeah.
You can send that to me. You can send that to me. You can, use Google Maps. Anybody can. We'll use yours.
Okay.
I know you live in a rural environment. So, yeah, just send me, or just any. It doesn't have to be even your neighborhood. It can be any neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's any area of interest, just send me an area where you've identified that if you've taken a right out of that area, of that land, property, and however many roads that it takes to get back to that same area.
Okay. All right.
And I'll provide one as well.
All right. Sounds great. I'm
right,
all for
everybody,
the
thanks,
homework.
Indiana.
I'm learning.
Well, thank you. Thank you for providing this platform, because like I say, I know folks are coming to these calls after the fact. The replays is getting out there.
Absolutely.
Reputation's easy.
And yes, and I'm seeing that, that the number of viewers are increasing on the videos, so at least they're coming back to be able to try and keep up with what's going on as well.
Right. And we can talk also about the, well, maybe a later call, but we can talk more about the professional relationship between 2 of the 4 postal area 4 states, like what we're doing now. So we can, because like I say, we do know that there are 2 states right now that have no coordination at all. So we can maybe reach out to that postal area and provide something that they can recreate,
Right.
the same, what, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Vermont, I believe it's Vermont, and maybe, I know it's Vermont and, oh my gosh, maybe Louisiana? Could be
Mississippi, maybe?
Maybe Mississippi.
I think Mississippi.
So we it sounds like we have a good opportunity to provide outreach to those current assemblies that are around those states.
Yeah, maybe Tennessee. They're moving.
Tennessee's in session, but I don't think they have a website.
They're doing great things. Okay, so, all right. We'll definitely be working on that to help them too.
All right, folks. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Christine, for providing the platform.
Absolutely.
I always look forward to these Mondays.
So do I, and I know the others do as well. They are commenting, at least saying that that they're going back for the replays. So we're working it out. We're gonna make this happen. All right. So we want to, for the next Jural Assembly call will be October the 9th, 6 p.m. Central, and but next week on Monday we have the General Assembly for the 2nd.
Yeah, and Christine, we might try on our meeting that we're having face to face. Maybe we can link in and you can be on the Zoom.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
We'll talk about that if you're available, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
It's on the 7th.
On the
It'll be
7th.
On the 7th.
Okay. I'll work things. It's a Saturday. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a mention that you are considering it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just an honorable mention, maybe 20 minutes of your time. I know you're very busy. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We can either do as a presentation or a Q&A, whichever works.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome. Sounds
Okay,
great.
Thanks.
All right.
See you next week.
Peace and love. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Recording stopped.